All right, everybody. If you are here for the strength training for women and all you need to know about, really diving into kind of what it takes to build strength and muscle for women, you are in the right place. I have the fabulous Ashleigh VanHouten. Ashleigh VanHouten is the actual writer of the Strength Training for Women course that we put together. We sought out Ashleigh in particular. She's a graduate of our primary course. You were one of the first OGs, right, Ashleigh? But this is her wheelhouse. Okay. Muscle Maven was the name of the podcast for a while. Is it still Muscle Maven?
It's now called Muscle Science for Women. So really honing in.
Oh, yeah. So this is your deal. So everyone, I want to introduce you to Ashleigh. Ashleigh, I'm going to let you kind of give them your little background story, and then we're going to dive into the meat. Now, just a little housekeeping item. We are going to keep some time at the end for questions, everybody. Please, please, please just throw them in the chat. I'm going to be kind of keeping a catalog of those and writing them down, and then we'll address them at the end. But please, as we're going, as Ashleigh's talking and you have questions, just type them in there while they're top of mind so we can address them at the end. All right, Ashleigh.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for being here, everybody who's showed up and who's listening to this later. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be here and chat about something that I feel very, very passionately about. And I'm used to talking a lot, so I'm going to try to do this. It's weird to just kind of talk forever. So Laura, please, feel free to interject. And anybody who has any questions, please do leave them in the chat so we can, hopefully talk together at the end of this. It's not just me talking the entire time. But just a little bit more context, like for me and why I really wanted to create this course and why I wanted to create it with Primal Health Coach Institute, why I think it's important. I have been a coach and have been coached for somewhere between a decade and 15 years. I try not to keep too close track to the years, but for a while.
More than 10.
More than 10. And I've been working out for 20 years. I've been working out for a long time, and both in my professional life and also my fitness life, I have really been in some very male dominated environments, whether we're talking about even health and fitness podcasting, right? From also my background in bodybuilding and powerlifting and things like that. And listen, not to say that there aren't a ton of women doing these things, because there are, and increasingly so. There are women who are really trying to learn more about how to build strength and build muscle and get stronger. But I have found in my experience that the resources and information for coaches who are helping these women do this has not caught up to the demand of how many women are actually out there trying to do it, right? There's a gap, and we wanted to fill that gap. And I think that this course really, again, in my experience, I have not seen any courses out here really focusing on this and really addressing women specifically and their unique and different challenges and backgrounds and understandings of strength and fitness and wellness. So that's why I think it's important. I think too often women are left feeling like they're either, not really part of the conversation, or they're kind of working with resources that in a lot of cases are applicable, but kind of applicable. They're not speaking to you. They're just speaking to a sort of a male avatar of a client, and you're kind of picking up the pieces where you can, right? And I think that the interesting balance that coaches have, men and women, everybody, coaching women, is understanding that we have to work within this sort of dichotomy. There's two sides of the coin, right? Where one side is understanding, recognizing, and being willing to talk about the actual differences between men and women. Women are not small men. There are physiological differences, as well as cultural differences in language and learning and what we've been taught is right or wrong. There are differences, and we need to be willing to understand those and respect them and address them in a coaching capacity. The other side of that coin is all of the ways in which we are the same. We get down to a fundamental muscle is muscle and strength training is strength training. But we maybe as women have been taught or learned somewhere along the way that we're different. And some of these things are gendered when it comes to how to nourish ourselves, how to build muscle, how to build strength. So there's really two sides of it, right? Where we are different and we got to respect those differences. But in a lot of ways, we're not so different. We're actually the same. And we should understand that side of it too, right? So we're kind of going into this conversation with the layered complexity that we have to approach this, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So I'm kind of just looking at my notes here so I don't immediately go off on tangents, but I think that these conversations are important. And, that's why in the strength training for women specialist certification, we have entire chapters dedicated to things like fitness culture. Like, what other strength training coaching programs talk about fitness culture? Like, that's a massive topic, but it's something that's important to, like, even just touch on. Understanding language and how, if my language around fitness and wellness is different than my coaches, we're already at a disadvantage because we aren't speaking the same language to each other, right? And all of these things are layered onto the much more potentially straightforward topics of nutrition, recovery, all that stuff that, of course, we talk about too. All of that we go into in a lot more granular kind of depth in the course, but we don't have time for that here. So what we wanted to chat about today is 3 kind of key factors in strength building as it applies to women and strength training. And I wanted to kind of note too that this is part of chapter 3 of the course, which is the programming training chapter. So of course, there are a lot of factors to strength building, stuff like nutrition, which has its own chapter. This is like the programming training chapter. So these are, again, sort of more high level factors that relate to that specifically. Okay. So if that all makes sense, we'll just dive into. Okay, great.
Let's dive in.
All right. So the 3 key factors for strength building, I know I'm going to get so worked up over this already. I was like going over it earlier today and I'm like, okay,
get worked up. We want everybody listening to get worked up and be excited and be like, yeah.
Yes,
and I feel likely will too. So
good. Okay. So chime in as you get worked up too, Laura. Okay. First key factor for effective strength building is intelligent programming. Now, of course, if you guys are coaches, you're listening to this, obviously. But what that means is a much more sort of layered, nuanced approach than just come up with a kick-ass program that's going to beat somebody up and make them feel like they got their money's worth, right? Like, I think one of the challenges for coaches often is that we want to deliver and we want to deliver right away. We want to feel like people are being challenged and get their money's worth. And so often in the strength training community too, we're kind of taught that, like, if you don't feel like you got your ass kicked, I'll try to keep it PG-13. Can I just say ass? Okay. If you don't feel like you got your ass kicked, you're not getting your money's worth. But intelligent programming is not just putting together some workouts that feel hard, right? Intelligent programming comes from listening to your client, understanding what they're telling you, what their goals and motivations are, getting to know them and their background. And I personally believe that a really, really good, really thorough intake form, as well as like a personal chat between the two of you at the kickoff, is really, really crucial for this. And I know Primal Health Coach Institute has a lot of like great sort of templates and stuff that you're going to want to build on. But first and foremost, if the training program isn't properly suited for them, their lifestyle, their capacity, their interests, their preferences, as well as their goals, you're already at a disadvantage. And we can talk about, Laura and I were talking offline about a case study, a Jane Doe that we can get into, because it's a very, very common, and I'm sure if you guys are coaching women, you've run into this as well. But essentially, intelligent programming means that you are making sure the program matches their goal, and you need to know what the goal is. It needs to be defined, and their capacity. You need to know practical things. So again, what is the goal, right? Like, so often, I know you guys get this. It's, I want to lose weight. I want to get stronger. I want to look toned. Okay. This is like literally all day, every day. That's what I hear. And those aren't goals. Those are just vague things that we hear and we think, yeah, those would be good. Of course, it would be good to be stronger and be toned. Everybody, who doesn't want that? But what does that mean? What does that mean to your individual client? It can mean so many different things, or it can be just completely ill-defined. They don't even know what they want. And you guys need to work together to create what the actual definable, tangible goal is, that you can work backwards in creating the programming that actually makes sense. You need to know other things like, how much time do they have over the course of not just a day or a week, but a 3, 6, 9 month program, the time that you're going to be working with them. How much time, how much energy and ability do they have to dedicate to their training? What is their life and stress like outside of the gym? This is a massive part. that we
Massive
talked
thing
about.
to consider. Yeah.
The stress outside of the gym is going to directly impact their ability and their capacity to get the work done in the gym. What is, for example, their training age, their experience? So training age is, how long they have been in the business of working out, or, whatever their fitness experience is. A 25-year-old athlete is going to have a greater training age than a 45-year-old who's kind of like just getting into it, right?
Mhm.
And their ability, their knowledge, their background, their training age is going to impact what kind of programming you can give them. What are their athletic backgrounds? What are their limitations, real or imagined, right? And I don't mean that in a condescending way. I mean, like, limitations could be, I have a knee injury, or I think that if I lift dumbbells, I'm going to get bulky. These are all limitations. They're different limitations. You're going to have to work with, work around, work through when you're creating programming, right?
Yeah.
So case study, right? Jane Doe, we
Yeah.
were talking about
Jane
this.
Doe. Yeah. Well, a couple things before we even get into that. Can you define for the group what you mean by capacity? I know what you mean by capacity. And
Yeah.
there may be some people that have taken the course that know what you mean by capacity, but can you kind of define that and give some examples of what you mean by know their capacity?
Yeah. So, and this also will like dovetail into like part 3 that we're going to get to too.
Mhm.
But capacity is not just like this person is fit, and so I think that they can do 4 different exercises of 10 reps and 3 sets of each, and they can be in there for about an hour. Capacity is your client, for example, a 22-year-old who lives at home and is completely prioritizing and dedicated to improving their strength in this one domain? Or is your client a 45-year-old shift worker with 3 kids who is run ragged in every possible way that they can be run ragged? And it's, again, I don't want to stereotype women specifically, but I mean, this is something that comes up over and over again with my female clients, is we don't necessarily equate training stress to stress, because we see that maybe as the only time we get to be by ourselves. We get endorphins that make us feel good. We feel like we're doing something for ourselves, so it feels good, but it's a stressor. And if you're adding that stressor on top of crap sleep, under eating, crazy stressful work life, personal life, their capacity is going to be diminished. And people don't want to hear that. And maybe that's not the language you have to use, but maybe it means that their typical, bust their ass for 3 months, 6 days a week to like achieve a goal isn't going to be appropriate. It's not going to be sustainable, and it's not going to be the most effective way to get them to where they want to go. So there are kind of different levels of capacity, right? But that's why you need to know your client. That's why you need to know not only what their goal is and what their background is and how they like to work out, but what does their day-to-day life look like, and what do they have coming up on the horizon? There are questions in the intake forms about, do you have any big life events coming up? Do you have any stressors going on currently in your home and personal life? You don't maybe have to give me the details, but like, tell me what your life looks like, and we can try to incorporate a program that makes sense, instead of me just saying, oh, you want to get stronger? Here's what I think is a good strength program. It doesn't work if it doesn't match what's the reality of their life, right?
Right. I see this all the time. And I always poke fun at CrossFit because I do it.
It's
I owned a gym
easy.
for a while. It's easy to poke fun at CrossFit, just is. But I see the concept of allopathic load evident every single day in the people that are coming into a CrossFit class. They're there 5 days a week. They still carry the same gut, even though they've been working their butts off. They've gotten stronger. But then I also just notice the ability to even understand the workout sometimes is like, wait a minute, how does this working? Like their mind's not there. That we're going to get into that mind body connection in a minute. But when, I hear them talking about how the gym is their sane place and it's how they relieve stress. And I think having a conversation around that emotional stress and their desire to feel like they're at the gym might be to a certain degree offsetting that. If they believe that, then that's probably to a certain degree true. But the physical stress of the workout is a part of this too. And this all rolls up into this concept of allopathic load, that at some point you hit diminishing returns. And it's an important conversation to have with somebody, because to your point, it will lower their overall capacity to actually meet that goal long term.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of one of the approaches you have to take, because, again, I've had, in my experience, it's really, really hard to get type A, hardworking people who don't like to rest, to have them sort of internalize that sometimes less really is more, right? The
Yeah.
same way it's really hard to teach women, for example, that sometimes eating more will help you lose weight. Like these things don't seem to make sense to a lot of people, but some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about as we continue, I think are some tactics to help kind of
Yeah.
really show instead of just tell, because saying it's one thing and having people actually like practice these things is going to be helpful. But
Yeah.
yeah, 100%. And so, our Jane Doe, basically my avatar client, because it's the person who keeps coming up over and over again, is someone who wants to get toned, right?
Mhm.
This word, I swear, it's going to like haunt me to my dying days,
Right.
the word tone. And again, we get into in the course, we talk about gendered language and how much of a big deal this is. You have literally never heard anyone describe a fit man as toned. It's a whole thing, but
Mhm.
in 2023, we think that this stuff doesn't really exist as much. And sometimes we're kind of in a bubble because we're in the fitness industry and we think like we're surrounded by strong women who are super educated and knowledgeable, and they can kind of see past this garbage, like the marketing and the outdated information and just misogynist kind of like thinking around fitness and wellness, but it's still there. It's still ingrained in a lot of people, and it's very hard to unlearn. So the woman who comes to you saying, I want to get toned, they're thinking, haven't like an idea of what that looks like. And they've been told that you have to, diet and eat less and burn those calories.
Mhm.
And that, prioritizing protein and lifting heavy weights, like that's the way to look like a professional CrossFitter, for example, because of course we all just stumble upon those bodies accidentally. But anyway, so this is where the language thing comes in though. Like if you say toned and I'm thinking, okay, you want to get strong and muscular and you need to eat, you need to work out and whatever. And she's thinking, well, the best way I heard to get toned is to do a ton of cardio and maybe I could train for a marathon and that will get me toned. And so that's why, understanding the person and their background and getting on the same page, communication wise is going to be really, really important. So, and again, like we could spend the rest of the hour talking about intelligent programming because there
Yeah.
are other important things to include here, like the concept of progressive overload, which is super, super important. And again, maybe to a lot of us seems like common sense, the idea of gradually increasing the stress, whether it's weight or reps or, decreased rest time or whatever, to gradually allow the body to adapt. That kind of stuff is really important to program in, to consider from the very beginning. But anyway, we could talk about this maybe some more at the end, but like,
Yeah, no, look, it's so important because I think making sure you understand what I want to look toned means. But some terminology I use with my women is what exactly do you want this body to do?
mm,
What function do you want this body to serve for you? Because just eating less and doing a lot of cardio is actually going to reduce that function. So
yeah,
let's talk a little bit. In addition, look, if we train and we nourish the body, you will look amazing naked. You will. We're going to get you there. That's like the side benefit of all this stuff. But at the end of the day, in order for us to train properly and intelligently, I need to know what you want this body to do for you.
mm-hmm,
What kind
mm-hmm,
of function do you want it to have? And now I can build, okay, if this woman's got 3 little kids, right? Ranging in age from 5 to 2. She's picking those kids up all day long.
mm-hmm.
She no doubt has some lower back problems. She might have a bicep tendon issue from constantly carrying a baby carrier around. There are functions her body needs to do that if she's training incorrectly will actually wear it down rather than serve that purpose for her.
100%, 100%. Yeah. Okay. Let's keep going. So I don't, again,
Yeah.
we could
Well,
go off on so many
can you get
tangents.
into kind of progressive overload?
Yeah. So, I
A little
mean,
bit?
basically one of the important things about it, like we said, gradually increasing in a measured and tracked way, the
Mhm.
stress that you're putting on someone's body. And again, what's important to know is that you have to know your client. You have to have some benchmarks because you can't just start them on a program and a weight and rep and set schedule if you don't know where they're coming from. And again, how much time they have to work out, to rest and recover, what they're doing outside of the gym, all that stuff. But it's basically looking like, we use the foundation of like a 12-week training cycle, because it's just a good starting point. And how you are going to start slow and gradual and pay attention. And they're going to need to track and journal and record not only the weights and sets and reps and rest, but how they feel and how they're recovering afterwards and how sore they are and all of these things. And based on the information gathering that you're getting from a very like initial, maybe 4-week benchmarking period, then you're looking at, okay, what do we increase? Do we increase maybe reps? Do we minimize rest? Usually, unfortunately, for a lot of people, the weight is kind of like the last thing that you want to increase, which upsets a lot of people because, of course, we all want to ego lift and like lift heavier weights. But we'll get into that with the mind muscle connection because it's really more about, and this is the ancestral primal background in me, is that it's like we want foundational functional movements that, to your point, are not only going to increase strength and make you look good, but are going to help you do whatever it is that you want to do better and longer. But again, to think about the progress over discrete periods of time instead of just like, I want to get a strong squat. How heavy can you lift? Okay, let's try to do that for 3 sets of 8. Record how you feel. We'll test it again in 12 weeks. It's a very like co-created, you're both paying attention to this process as you go and adjusting as you go. And you're not going to get it perfect. You know, you're not going to maybe know exact weights and sets. We talk about actual numbers and how to determine like what may be good starting weights would be for people and what are like the good rep schemes. Because again, that's another thing that we can go down rabbit holes forever is, well, what's the best rep scheme for building strength or hypertrophy? We talk about the difference. Like, should you be doing actually higher reps? Should women be doing higher reps? Should we be doing less rest because of our physiology? Like, these are tweaks. These are details. At the end of the day, it's about, again, figuring out a plan that works and that makes sense, starting gradually, focusing on consistency and getting them to just show up with focus and intention and put everything they have into every workout, take it from there, right? Like,
So, and I would love to, as we're going through the rest of this, those of you that might be working with women now, share with us some of your avatars, some of the people that you're trying, you know, if you want to kind of share, hey, you know what, I want to focus on this niche. What are some questions I might want to ask this woman that Ashleigh and I can riff on? Or, hey, you know, I'm currently training someone and here's her situation. Because to your point, somebody wants to get I mean, so many of the moms I work with have like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
20 minutes, like 3 days a week. We need to get a big bang for our buck in that 20-minute period of time. The good news is kind of a primal approach to fitness. We can actually get a lot done in 20 minutes. But, you know, these are some things. So folks, as you're kind of thinking through and listening to what Ashleigh's saying, send us your questions, the kind of people you envision working with, things that might have you stumped and questions you want to ask. Okay. I just wanted to interject that. So go ahead. Let's keep moving.
Okay. Second factor for strength building. This is huge. This is for every single person, man, woman, everybody, but it's something that I literally almost never see incorporated in strength training programs and coaching programs is teaching and encouraging mind muscle connection. So we all know that this is sort of the optimal muscle tension, proper muscle recruitment for whatever it is, the exercise, the movement that you're doing. It sounds very woo-woo, but there really is a fair bit of anecdotal and evidence that points to its ability to increase effectiveness in the gym. Basically, what you're doing is you're asking someone to visualize the muscle that they're working and sending their concentration to the area that they're working. So an example, if a person they're doing weighted step ups because they want to build bigger glutes, because that's real hot right now, right?
Right.
But they're maybe saying like, I really just feel it in my quads. I'm really just kind of sore and tired in my quads after I do this. Of course, there are things like form and foot placement and movement pattern that is going to be adjusted to, you know, focus on one muscle over the other. But there's also like, are we telling people when you are doing this step up, think about those big glute muscles firing and tensing, connect with those as you're pushing up in a controlled fashion through this exercise. What we're all thinking, because we're all torn in a million different directions and not really paying attention, is get to the top and do it 10 times because that's what the program told me to do. And then take a break. And then I have to do it 2 more times, then I'm done. But instead, if we think about, okay, I've got 10 reps in front of me. Every time I step onto this thing, I'm going to focus on squeezing that glute and using it to propel myself through this movement, both the eccentric and the concentric part of this movement, right? The lowering and the lifting, no matter what the exercise is. that's another thing that we often, I feel like, kind of autopilot our way through movements. And I like to use like a bicep curl as an example, because at the end of the day, I am a old-fashioned bodybuilder. So I like a bicep curl. And, it's very easy to momentum your way through that
Yeah.
exercise. I could walk out to the gym right now and probably do bicep curl 25s, 30s if I do it crappy form enough, and use my entire body as momentum. But if I slow down and I connect with the muscle and I prioritize muscle tension and connection through every second of that movement, the lifting and the lowering, I will probably use way less weight. Like we're talking tens, baby. I don't need to ever bicep curl with heavier than tens. And I've been doing it for a million years. You're probably going to do less reps. It's going to be you're going to spend more time in muscle tension, but it's a slower, more connected, more focused experience. And we do not do this enough. Even people who love the gym and dedicate themselves to the gym, I'm a perfect example of this. We find ourselves maybe, again, on autopilot more than we think. We find ourselves thinking about, let's just get to the end of this workout. And if I'm, my heart rate's up a little bit and I'm a little bit sweaty, okay, that's great. We find ourselves maybe spending more time on our phones in between sets than is necessary. And I think that this is, not only is it really, really a great physical exercise, but it's also a great mental one. And I think, well, to back up, I think that this is important for women, especially too, because we often tend to have more mobility and flexibility than men. That is kind of another aspect that we talk about in the course. There's a higher percentage of women who experience things like hypermobility. So the ability to move beyond what's considered like a normal or typical range of motion. And again, maybe some people on this call have been this person or seen this person, maybe a woman barbell squatting, and she just drops to the bottom of that squat, right? Like ass to grass, CrossFit styles. And, we can look at that and think, man, that's impressive. Like she can just get down there, right? But if you're dropping into a movement, and we're not talking about Olympic lifting, we're talking about muscle, like exercises for strength training, you're not doing that under control. You're not doing that with muscle tension. Your body just allows you to fall into that position. That's not improving your mobility, stability, strength. It's just, you're just moving. And if anything, it's actually can potentially, of course, be dangerous and set you up for injury, because if you start adding load to this uncontrolled movement, it's a problem. So instead of glamorizing being able to get your butt to the ground in a squat, maybe we shorten that range of motion a little bit, but you are experiencing actual muscle control and tension through the entire eccentric and concentric part of that movement. You're going to feel your muscles more. You're going to grow your muscles more. You're going to be doing this in a more safe way that is encouraging functional strength, right? So it's incredibly important to teach and prioritize muscle tension. And the second part of this, before I take a breath, the second part of why I think this is so important for everyone, but I'm speaking about women here, is not only is it increasing your workout efficacy, your efficiency, you're not just going through the motions and throwing the weight around, you're really using it. It's also great for the mental side of this, right? For busy people who feel like this is the only time I get to myself, and maybe they have a hard time with self-care or doing something for themselves, but they have invested this time, they're spending a couple hours a week, whatever, in the gym, and you're still, without really realizing it, you're kind of maybe going through the motions. Like you're thinking about something else. You're doing a grocery list on your phone in between sets. You're thinking about what you have to do tonight and all the work you have to get done. If you're in here, if you're taking this time already for yourself, let's use this as like a mental exercise, even a meditative exercise that's also going to improve the results that you're seeking in the gym, right?
Yeah.
I just think it's a really, really important and underserved part of the strength training. It's like, if you're going to squat, do it. Think about it. Think about every second that you're doing it instead of just how to get to the end,
I mean, I've seen in just the standard, and I see it in a CrossFit gym too. These little avatars, the poster, the person who's trying to record themselves doing their back squat. So they set up their phone and everything's all that. And they're more concerned with how they look on the camera and looking impressive than actually doing the movement properly. And I will see knees coming in. I'll see the dreaded, I call it the stripper butt, where they're leading with their butt first instead of driving down through the floor with their quads and peeling the floor. So this is where I have to stop people and be like, I want you to let this movement starts with the feet. Okay. On the drive back up, you have to be
Mhm.
grounded, right? What are your feet doing? And almost always they're on the sides. They're on the sides of their feet and they don't even know it. Right? Or they're
Mhm.
curling in on the insides and their knees are coming in. So the knees are
Mhm.
coming in because their feet are folding in. We all know that there's muscles that are overactive, underactive, tight, loose,
Mhm.
and weakened and all that other jazz. But if we can help people really think through all the muscles that are incorporated in doing this movement from beginning to end and focusing on what those muscles are doing and how to improve that, then form goes up. And I will promise you, when your form gets better in beginning, what I've seen is the amount of weight that they move goes down at first because they were doing it improperly. Then they really get stronger. Then they start to see themselves getting over that plateau. And it
Mhm.
happens every single time. I see it with deadlift too. And here's
Mhm.
the other thing. I will often see people adding more weight. They're cheating the movement and they're adding weight to move up when they it's not safe. It's not safe
Yeah.
for you. I see this a lot with press where people are doing this shoulder press, right? And this is meant to be a pure strength move, right? You're engaging, it's all of these muscles, your lats, everything. And then at the end, their last couple, it's really more of a
Push
they
press.
get that dip drive in there. It's really
Yeah.
more of a push press, or we're practicing push press, but really it's a jerk. And it's
Mm.
like this little, they're kind of cheating that movement a little bit to kind of move up in weight, but when they really didn't do it properly the first time.
Mhm.
So they're really not getting stronger. They're just making the lift easier
Yeah.
to,
Yep.
to move up in weight and you're cheating yourself. So the mind muscle connection and being aware of every muscle that should be moving and
Mhm.
engaging in all parts of that lift. I mean, an overhead press is not just shoulders.
No, not at all. I
No.
mean, I completely agree that this mind muscle connection, first of all, is just a very, very essential um, part of training that is going to improve everybody's movement
Mhm.
and their return. But it is also an incredible ego check. And we talk about this in the course. We talk about a lot of aspects of ego when it
Mhm.
comes to lifting that I think will be surprising for people when we're talking about women in strength training. But one of the things I've learned, and I'm sure you can back me up on this in 20 years of lifting weights, is that nobody cares how much weight you're lifting besides you. And
Right.
personally, the wisdom that I have gained from 20 years of working out is that I would rather lift a lighter weight and get stronger and look better than ego lifts some heavier weight with less results. Like,
Mhm.
again, maybe it's the Instagram thing. It's like, okay, you can show somebody that you can do this weight,
Right.
but like I would rather go in there and humbly, I'm telling you, everybody that's on this call, next time you go to the gym, even if you're like really anti-isolation exercises, I would love for you to go do this bicep curl. I'm going to make like a reel about it so I can show people, but like one arm at a time. Okay. And you focus about as much muscle contraction as you can do in your biceps and your triceps on the way down, on the way up, slow and controlled. Don't go up to where there's no tension anymore, only points of tension. Bicep curl.
Mhm.
Do 10 reps, nice and slow, with the hardest contraction you can do, and tell me how hard it is, and tell me how much lighter you went in weight.
Yeah.
Trust me on this.
Oh
Like
yeah.
it's so good, and it's such a good exercise. And you do that once and you feel it and you see it. Maybe tell your clients to try this,
Mhm.
and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I get it now. Okay, so this actually is much more effective than just like flopping my way through a squat because I can,
Right.
like anyway."
Right. Oh,
So I
100%.
yeah.
And I see it with push-ups too. If you try to do a push-up with a controlled descent, right? You can program this. It's called a cadence, right? It's called a
Mhm.
where it's like a 3 by they'll give you the tempo where
Yes,
they're
tempo.
telling
Yeah.
you how many seconds are on the where you're coming down, how many seconds are at the
Pausing.
bottom, how
Yeah.
many seconds on your way up. And the slower it is, the harder it is, and the more this is all about time under tension.
Mhm.
You will do fewer reps, I promise you. And I see this happen in push-ups a lot of time. People are doing these halvesy push-ups and they're doing them really fast and they're getting reps. But if they actually did them properly,
Yep.
their form is better. Oh my
All
gosh.
of it.
So
Pull-ups. This is where I could go down a rabbit hole. I'm like, if I could just go in and police everyone's pull-ups in the gym, that would be my job. If you could just pay me to like get
mhm.
after people who are doing pull-ups like that, I would be a happy person. I could just stay in the gym and
Oh yeah. Force them to do those
irritate
pull-up
people
negatives.
all day long. All day long.
All day long.
Okay.
And then just lastly, the other kind of little case study I see, and for those
Mm.
of you that want to do personal training is the chatter. the person that's actually using you as a therapist and talking about all the things in life that are happening and sharing the gossip and doing all these things, and you're in between sets and they're chatting about the date that they were just on or what the kids just did. Their mind is not in the workout. It's really, really hard to, but like I get it. I get it. It's like being at the hairdresser too. They kind of want to talk about everything that's going on, but you're here for a reason. And it's really, you're much better off having a conversation about how that rep felt. Did they feel
Yeah.
disengaged? What else do we need to do? And really focus on the actual movement and the purpose that they're there. Have a conversation. If you're going to do this, have a conversation about their health or a conversation about their nutrition or whatever, something that's really that keeps their mind focused on why they're there in the first place.
Yes. I mean, you're relatively speaking, you're spending such little time in the gym, but you can make it really effective if you just are 100% there when you're there, right? Okay, so this last one is obviously a massive topic, but I'm going to keep it short because we don't have a whole lot of time. But the third important aspect to strength building is rest and recovery. And this is so important and so underserved in fitness in general, but in women's fitness, especially, that we have an entire chapter dedicated to this. We talk about things like, what recovery actually is and what it isn't, how to know if someone is under recovering and overtraining, the specific negative impacts that women can experience as a result of chronic overtraining, chronic under recovery that's usually combined with undernourishing, all of these things, how this can impact your quality of life. But as it relates to programming, like we're just going to kind of like, chip away at the iceberg here today and just kind of talk about what it means, how important it is for like the programming aspect of it. So, we know that strength building especially requires a really, really high amount of effort, both physically and neurologically during workouts. It's a lot of effort for your mind and your body. So it's really important to try and get back into that parasympathetic state, not only after your workout, but in between sets as well. So this goes back to point 2 about like the focus and mind muscle connection. Maybe instead of, again, looking and seeing what other people are doing on Instagram between sets. I know I'm guilty. I'm not talking crap about other people. I do this too. But instead thinking, okay, get the heart rate back down. Be calm. Let's think about what I have to do. Again, now my next set, it's going to be hard. I'm ready. I'm breathing. I've got oxygen. I've got energy. Let's get after it. Doing this in between your sets is going to keep you focused, get you in your parasympathetic state, which is where we want to be most of the time. We'll talk about that later, but like that's where we want to be so that we're ready for these brief bursts of really high output, right? So of course there's like the intra workout recovery, and then there's between workout recovery. Active recovery. I like to talk about active recovery because it's more palatable for people who don't like resting and who think taking a day off means you're lazy and you've wasted that day and you feel like lazy and useless when you take a day off. So active recovery is living your life, but just not adding to the allostatic load, the stress under your body, the muscle taxing, right? It's like move your body, get your blood flowing, enjoy yourself. Don't sit on the couch all day if that's not something you feel like doing. But active recovery is going for a nice walk and an easy bike ride and playing with your kids or playing with your dog in the park. It's not a 2-hour rec basketball game. It's not a half day hike in the woods with a 30-pound backpack. That's a workout. That's going to be part of your programming. That's not its own thing, right? Because that's hard and challenging. So anyway, we need to, again, it goes back to the language thing. Like, let's both be clear here when we're talking about programming, what recovery is, and also really bringing home that the recovery part of the week, that part that makes you so restless, that's really uncomfortable for you, is where you are getting stronger. You're not getting stronger in the gym. You're breaking yourself down in the gym if you're doing it right. That's where you're tearing your muscles. That's where you're tiring yourself out. The recovery part, when you do it right, by recovering and resting and nourishing your body and moving some blood, is when your body has the time and ability and capacity to build back those muscles stronger, which makes you stronger and makes you toned, and makes you look good. It's all the answers. The answers lie in the recovery. And one conversation that I believe you and I have had, and I know Erin and I have had offline, is looking at your programming and your training program. Like, if we're trying to do this well and really incorporating into their life, is setting this foundation and groundwork of making your client's body optimally ready, recovered for the brief periods of hard work that you're going to be programming in. But the foundation is rest and recovery. Like so often we think, okay, I'm paying this person to give me a training program. Let's beast mode for 5 days a week or whatever it is. Right. And then, there's a rest day in there. I'll take it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. What we're actually trying to do is make you rested and recovered and in a parasympathetic state and nourished all the time, so that once a week when you do a sprint workout, or 3 days a week when you're doing your strength training in the gym, you are optimally ready for it. And it's a hard switch for people to internalize, right? But I think, and this may be controversial, I don't know, that unless, again, you're an elite athlete, the average person that we're training, even high level recreational for fun athletes, like strong athletic people, if you're not an elite professional athlete, you don't need to be in the gym 6, 7, even 5 days a week, most of us. And we need to, again, show through compassionate, empathetic teaching and experience and communication that actually could be slowing down what you're trying to do. And then if you instead of your 6 days a week that you're so used to, your 6 days, 1 hour of like beast mode workouts, if you cut that in half and took those other days to get outside in the sun and put your feet in the dirt and walk and maybe eat a little more protein and maybe sleep in an extra hour instead of waking up when it's dark to get into the gym, whatever. This, again, I'm just speaking about a particular maybe client that's on my mind right now, but these things, you are going to get to your goal faster. Less is more when you're doing it right. And this is another thing for like hard charging people who want to work hard. If you are doing it right in the gym, you won't feel like you need to be there 6 days a week.
Right.
If you're 100% focused and in it and doing that mind muscle connection and putting 100% effort into everything you're doing for the 2 to 4 days that you're in the gym, you will feel like that's enough, especially with all the other things that you're working on outside of the gym, which is most of your life.
Right.
So that's it. I mean, rest and recovery.
Yeah.
Every 12-week training program should have a deload week programmed into it. Every week of the training program should have multiple, and in many cases, more rest days than training days.
Right.
People don't like to hear this. And again, it's individual to the client and their goal. But I think looking at it more like your life should be parasympathetic. Let's support that so that when you do go into the gym for these few days, you're killing it, versus, oh, you want to get strong and lose weight in 12 weeks. Okay. How much can you do? How much can you go to the gym to get this done? We need to teach about working smarter instead of harder, because people are already have hard enough lives and busy and stressed enough lives. We need to like support, their strength and health, instead of like, how can we beat you down in the gym so you feel like you're getting something done, So
I did a presentation at a fitness conference, and the title of the presentation was Primal Fitness, the Future of Fitness. And I basically spent the first 10 minutes bashing the entire fitness industry and how not only are we training people wrong, we're messaging to them wrong, and we're doing business wrong. And I laid out the case for how to do this better. And guys, what she's talking about, and like rest is part of the program. It's part of your programming. It doesn't have to be do nothing today, sit on the couch. To your point, it can be, okay, we discovered that you have tight hamstrings or you have weak glutes and tight hip flexors. Your rest day can be programmed mobility on how to loosen up those hip flexors. My big issue is always in my neck and my traps. My rest days are spent on a foam roller or on a lacrosse ball or something that's working these knots out. I'm doing something for my body. Programming in a walk. Guys, every single minute your client spends moving counts.
Yeah.
It counts, right? So rest days could be counting steps. You could be doing so much of this. And so my argument was the problem, and the reason we're not programming in this way is because we're not paid that way. We are paid per session. If I'm a CrossFit gym owner, I get paid more if my client's buying the unlimited package instead of the 3-day-a-week package, right? So we are, as an industry, selling volume rather than intensity. When done properly, I know CrossFit thinks it sells intensity, but I'm sorry, they're not priced that way. They're not. Okay. So there's a disconnect between how we're paid and how we are demonstrating our value and actually what's in the best interest of the client. So if you are selling a 12-week program that includes some of this kind of primal nutrition that we were talking about, it includes mindset work and meditation on certain days. It includes journaling. It includes mobility. It includes the whatever 3 days, whatever you're putting into their program based on, to your point, the capacity they have in any given week to actually get done. That's what they should be paying you for,
Yeah.
not sessions. So if you are structuring your business right and you're selling programs and coaching, training is just the tool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You are paid differently. And now you are on the same side as your client in terms of goals and what you're trying to accomplish.
Yep.
So I hope that that comes through, and everything you just addressed, Ashleigh, is right in line with that entire concept.
And I mean, this applies to like online coaches too, not even just
Mhm.
in-person personal trainers. Like
Right.
the same way we feel like they paid us for this, so we have to give them enough that they feel like, oh wow, like I invested in this person, I'm getting so much. And I've struggled with this because again, my avatar client, I've already kind of explained to you, it's the same sort of person over and over again who's used to. This is why this is so important, because women, in my experience in coaching, the biggest challenges they face, it's not even how do I eat enough? How do I work out hard enough? It is this inability to find balance between the exercise part of their life and the rest of their life. It's
Mhm.
so easy to be all or nothing. It's so easy to become obsessed with this workout part of your life and prioritize it and work super hard and, undereat and just work out too much and grind and grind and grind. Or when that inevitably becomes too much and it becomes overwhelming, or your life gets in the way, you completely fall off the wagon. And you have this cycle, and you have this cycle of paying for coaches. Okay, well, this one didn't work, so I guess I'll try again. And this person looks fit and she looks like she's gonna beast me for a couple months. Maybe this time will work. And so it's working with clients where you say, look, it doesn't have to feel so hard. It doesn't have to feel so grueling. In fact, if this training program feels smooth in a way that is different, that means it's because it's working in your life. It's working in the context of your life. That doesn't mean we don't have to tell our female clients, you shouldn't work hard and your life is too stressful, so just forget about it. We always have space to build strength, build muscle, work hard, challenge ourselves.
Oh yeah.
But it doesn't have to be this unsustainable feeling, grinding chore that we think we just got to get through it. If it feels the other way, if it feels like, oh, I actually kind of feel like I have maybe some extra energy, or I slept extra today instead of working out, and
Mhm.
that feels kind of weird and it's sort of uncomfortable. And I walked 3 days this week instead of went to the gym. I don't know. That's weird. The consistency of it, the fact that you can do this consistently and find balance, it's going to reap the rewards over time that will stay. They will stick with you. So you don't have to, and I guess with you, with the client, so you don't have to keep doing this and starting it over and over
Over
again.
and over.
It's
Yeah.
just your life now. And guess what? Now you also have bigger muscles.
Yeah.
Yay.
All right, we got a couple questions here.
Okay.
So I'm going to do, so there's two questions that came in, but then I have another question. So one is about an avatar, women with Hashimoto's and HPA axis dysfunction. I think a lot of what you just talked about kind of addresses this, but what do you
Yeah.
think?
And I mean, another thing I was going to say too, like we have a whole chapter about sort of like hormonal health and stuff, because obviously we've got a more, complicated sort of deal there, unfortunately, women, and working around your cycles and your periods and working around autoimmune, which more women tend to suffer from than men. These are really, again, more complicated things that we can't always necessarily like diagnose or specifically advise on. But the good news is, and this is why I think a lot of you have come to the Primal Health Coach Institute, is that working on a lot of these foundational things of like managing stress and improving your sleep and nourishing yourself better and finding the foods that nourish you better, and in many cases, working out less. All of these things that are sort of foundational health principles for everyone can often make giant leaps in improving things like autoimmune issues, hormonal issues, cycle issues. Again, PCOS is another big one that comes up for my clients. But again, we do have limitations there, right? Because we can't really specifically diagnose or advise on, we're not doctors, right? Well, maybe some of you are, but I'm not.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so, HPA axis dysfunction and thyroid, these are the master like energy regulators. So much of kind of leaning into my thoughts are kind of leaning into and really pampering that parasympathetic nervous system, and let that client earn the right to move forward and really, sorry, my dog's barking, and stress the body in a way that actually move them forward. So rest and recovery is even more important for folks that have that dysfunction, and maybe even adding in some sort of yoga, tai chi type work that uses the muscles, and there's a lot of oxygen and flow there, and then peppering that with some very intentional strength training exercises around their needs and their own personal movement patterns and what they're looking to achieve. So someone else is asking, and you kind of addressed it already, but we can go a little deeper. Does this program address hormones and strength training, pre-post menopause, or cycle strength training, et cetera?
Yes, it does. That's a short answer. It does. And, one of the big questions that I get a lot is, about training around your cycle and how to sort of manage the inevitable, and I'm talking about monthly cycle here, because we of course have a life cycle too, of like the reproductive and then post-reproductive phases, and all the ways that it can change a lot of things about our physiology and our response to training and nutrition and all of these things. But and we do dive into it. We don't really have the space to do that now, but I mean, I think one high level thing that I like to tell people that has worked in my coaching experience is, rather than sort of trying to create a plan around your cycle, which does fluctuate and does change, what we want to do is try to support our hormonal health at all stages to a point where we are working and functioning optimally, so that we don't really have to work our training around our hormonal stuff, because we won't have stuff. It's just sort of like, it's there, it exists. We all have cycles. We all go into menopause. We all have these things. Yay. This is so much fun as women that we get to deal with this. But if we're optimizing all these other parts of our life, then we don't have to
You don't have to
we don't have to fit them. Yeah. And we don't have to fit them in that way. And I mean, again, somebody who has PCOS and who's experiencing some like really drastic hormonal fluctuations due to perimenopause or menopause, these are individual cases that you have to work with your clients and maybe outsource some additional help. But again, for the vast majority of like relatively normally functioning women at every stage, it's like, let's focus on this, rest, recovery, parasympathetic state, nourishing our body, get the right proteins and fats and all of these things, so that our body is just doing what it's supposed to do. So we don't have to think about it as much. But yes, we have a chapter.
It's all in there. It's all in there about the follicular phase and the luteal phase, and when the body's much more likely to do really well on a high intensity workout, and when the body needs to kind of pare things back a little bit. And look, I guess if your client is super regular and is on like their menstrual cycle is like clockwork, it might be a little easier to kind of like in a 12-week program kind of build in where you may have some deload weeks and weeks where you want to go heavier. But I don't know about you, but I'm seeing more and more women that are not regular at all. I
mean that, and also like I worry about, I'm not saying that it's like 100% a bad idea. I think it is dependent on the individual, but some of this like really hyper specific training around like monthly cycles worries me the same way that like really strict adherence to like technology and things like Whoop and Oura Ring and stuff do a little bit, because we then tend to listen to that more than our bodies. Because 1 month during your period, you may feel like garbage and you want to rest and relax and you want to eat some more carbs, and maybe that's completely appropriate and you listen to that. And then some months, maybe your cycle training is saying, hey, you better lay off, but you feel great. And you're thinking, well, the program, my period, so I think we need to, again, kind of focus more on like, what is and we talk about biofeedback and all of these ways to kind of get this information from our clients. But I just personally find generally like, let's just optimize everything to the point where we can just listen to what our body is telling us on the day, instead of what the wisdom of the cycle tells us we should do, or whatever,
There's a lot of mystique behind that. And you're 100% right. And I see people, but here's the thing, what's going to have a bigger impact on your ability to hit a lift or whatever is, how well did you sleep last night? Did you drink alcohol? How are you using caffeine?
Are you hydrated?
Exactly. How well fueled and hydrated are you? That's going to have the much bigger impact. And look, there are people who just know that they are, that know themselves and they know their cycle very well. And you can really work with those people and get nitty gritty if they want to. Most women don't know their body well at all. That's the biggest problem, right? They don't. And maybe that could also kind of go into part of your programming, is spending a couple of weeks asking these women to really listen to their body. Let's find out what your period and your cycle is like. And I want you to start writing down how you feel on any given day. And are there any commonalities? I mean, these are things we talk about, ways that we can work with clients for longer periods of time to really, really drive things home. This can be something that you can add in there. But to your point, I mean, how well did they sleep? Did they stay up too late binge watching Netflix? Are they upset about a fight with their boyfriend? I mean, you name it. The kids are driving them crazy. All of that's going to have easily as big of an impact. The hormones just complicate it further, unfortunately. Right?
And just like one tiny, I know we gotta cut here soon. And I think there's another question, but like there's a recent study, I'm gonna have to try to find it to maybe send it to you. A new study that was kind of basically alluding to the fact that like women, trained female athletes, their cycles don't impact like scientific data as much as historically was thought. So, like prior to the the beginning of our conversation, how we were saying like we are underserved because no one does research that includes women and their scientific data, and we just think, oh, they're so weird with their cycles, so let's just look at the male avatar and you can just extrapolate. And there's more and more research coming out now that it's like that's not necessary, that we should be included in the data. And even if we did have crazy, more complicated cycles where things were up and down and all over the place, we still deserve the research and the study and the data and the information. So anyway, it matters. We should understand it. We should learn it. We should respect that we are cycling women with lots of hormones that we have to deal with throughout our life cycle. But we can understand it and work with it instead of like treating it like a opponent, Yeah.
But in the course is advice and thoughts around, generally speaking, these are how the changes in hormones affect women in training. And so all of that's in there. So another person is asking, I've already finished this certification. Awesome. Is there any organization that recognizes this certification that I could mention to gyms I may be interested in working with? So similar to health coaching, there are a couple of like organizations that act as credentialing agencies. Some have sway. So we are in the middle of applying to a whole bunch of places. Now that we've gotten all of our secondary kind of specialist courses out onto the market, we're now working towards getting them approved at NBHWC, NCCA, getting CEUs approved for NASM, ACE, and all that stuff. So that's all the stuff that we're working on now. Now that everything is out, we're really, really busy behind the scenes getting all of these secondary courses out and published and out to you guys. Now that they're there, now we can fill out one application and include 5 or 6 different programs rather than dripping. So though all of that stuff is coming, we're currently applying at the NCCA or ICE for the broad program, as well as strength training for women. And then we'll take a look. And if there's other ones you want us to consider applying for, we will. But we've got CEUs coming for NASM and ACE. Those are the 2 big ones. I know there's more, ACSM and a couple of other ones. But again, we may look to get these approved at NBHWC as well, the National Board for Health and Wellness Coaching. So how do I get recognized as legit without a CPT certificate? So is that what you want to do? Do you want to be a certified personal trainer where you're developing programs and counting reps for people in a gym? If that's what you want to do, you can certainly do that. This certification, in my humble opinion, goes a lot further. But if they want you to have a certified, this is not a certified personal trainer. This is a fitness coach certification, which is very, very different. It's quite frankly better. And again, we're in the process of getting it approved at NCCA. But what do you really want to do with this? Do you want to be paid $1 per hour? However much you're do you want to be paid per session? Do you want to be paid for hours? Or do you want to be paid as a professional for actually moving the needle in terms of changes in behavior, habits, desire, motivation, all those things? So to answer your question, I'm not sure who it is. They're anonymous. All that's coming. We're in the middle of applying for it. But I would also ask you to kind of get out of that headspace and stop letting other people define your value as a CPT and don't let other people define what's legit.
Yeah.
You are legit and you know a lot. And you need to stand firm in that kind of confidence. And when they ask you, is this a credentialed or an accredited course? Yeah, yes, our school is an accredited school. We are approved in a lot of different places. We're working on the individual programs as well. And I'm happy to help you with the language on that one. So the last thing I just wanted, and we really kind of have to run, we've been talking a lot about the type A woman that we need to slow down. I also have people that just, they either don't like to exercise and they know they need to, and working with the people on in terms of that mindset and programming and how to work with those people, but also the time constraint people in terms of different avatars. Do you have any thoughts there?
It's funny because I think people sort of self-select after a certain amount of time in the industry. And it's so rare for me to get somebody who's like, I want to work with you, but I don't like to work out. Cause I'm like, you came to the wrong place. But with that said, of course, yes, 100%. There are people who are like, I don't have time. I know that this is important, but I've got a really busy life. Again, I think it boils down to efficiency and having a conversation with these people, getting really, really clear and realistic on like literally how much time can you give me? Like we all have 24 hours in the day, but can you give me 20 minutes, 3 days a week? That's it. Okay. So then what are we going to do? So then in tandem with whatever their goal is, you think, what exercises literally can you and will you do? Because the old adage of like, the best workout plan is the one they'll do. Right.
Right.
So if they hate CrossFit or they hate barbell workouts or they hate yoga or whatever, like there's always, I may think back squats are the best thing in the world, but if they don't want to do them, there's always something you can, whatever. So then of course, from a very like logistical, practical standpoint, like compound movements, like multi-joint functional movements. So, if I have all the time in the world, I spent many years doing bodybuilding style isolation exercises because I wanted to build specific muscles. If this person wants to get stronger and fitter so they have less pain when they're taking care of their kids and they want to look a little bit better in a bathing suit, let's look at some very time efficient circuit style, intelligent, functional movements that maybe are body weight. Maybe they're outside. Maybe they're doing lunges and some push-up progressions with a couple sprints and some bear walks and some I'm blanking on it. What's the planks? There you go. My brain, I'm so over it. So, things that use your entire body, right? It's obviously going to be more effective. So there are always ways that we can program workouts. Anybody can beast themselves, can work really, really hard in 10, 15 minutes if you're programming effective, efficient movements. Yeah, you don't need an hour. Nobody needs an hour in the gym. You can take it if you want to, and that's great, but you don't need it.
Right. And because again, it does occasionally come up for me when I have these women that are like, I know I need to do it, but I don't like it, and then this is when we have to have this whole conversation about what don't you like, and tell me, is it how you're literally feeling in your body? Do you just not feel capable? So a lot of times with these women, they are intimidated. They're a little bit scared. They feel completely bewildered. They don't know what to do. They feel like they look stupid. They can handle being a little sore and all this other stuff as long as they see progress. So when I'm hearing stuff like that, this is an opportunity for a coaching conversation around, why do you feel that way? Why do you feel like you have to do it? Where does that come from? Rather than feeling blessed that you have the opportunity to do it. Right? Is it that you're taking time away from something else that you would rather be doing?
Yeah.
Or is it you're taking time away from something else you think you should be doing rather than spending it on yourself and all these other things? So, all right. 5:06. We're not too bad here. It's 5:06 my time. I don't know what time it is.
We could do this forever.
I know. So is there anything that you want to add before I kind of let this motley crew go?
I mean, my brain's kind of turning to mush now, but I think the thing that I want to leave you guys with is that I think that having these conversations, even if you're having them with your coaching friends, even if you're like having them, I don't know, with yourself or your partner, if they're willing to listen to your work talk or whatever, but having these conversations about including conversations and pieces of physiology and stuff that maybe we haven't really always included, it's really, really important. And ultimately, your client wants to feel heard. They want to feel understood. And if you take the time, and even if you're taking this course and you talk to your female clients, like, look, I took this course, I'm learning so much. This is so helpful. I'd love to talk to you about this thing I read in chapter 2 that I'd like never talked about before. Like, we want to feel, this is something I've always felt in the podcasting, coaching, personal training, fitness, bodybuilding world that I've always wanted. And that's why this course was created. I just want to feel like we're part of the conversation, we're heard, we're understood, we're listened to, our challenges and our concerns are respected and heard. And we want to feel like we have an equal shot to be excited and learn and get strong as everybody else, right? And the more we all learn about it, the more we all educate ourselves about every type of client we could have, the better off we're going to be, better off our clients are going to be, and the stronger and fitter our world is going to be. So this stuff is important, and I'm just super pumped that you guys were willing to come here and learn and talk about it with us.
I love it. And like getting stronger is something that has given me so much more confidence. This concept of feeling more capable has really, really come out of feeling stronger. They kind of go hand in hand. And so the more empowered a client feels because you've built an intelligent program for them based on their world and their goals and what they're either perceived or real limitations, all of these things, if they know this program that you've written for them, it will empower them and it'll increase confidence, and they're going to be more mindful about every single thing they're doing because they know there was everything in that program is intentional for them, and why waste it, and that if they feel like that programming and everything they did in the gym got the job done and they were well worked, they're going to be happy to take that rest day and be ready to jump on in, and then strength will come. So I thought that was beautifully done. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Everyone have a good night. Have a good rest of your day. Bye, guys.
Bye, folks.